Joining Mr. Woods in conversation today is his friend and former NBA star with the New York Knicks, Allan Houston. Mr. Houston is the founder of the Allan Houston Legacy Foundation, which supports a combination of basketball and relationship building activities for fathers and children and mentors and mentees, emphasizing leadership, communication, and the importance of spending quality time together. To date, this program has served more than 15,000 participants in New York, Detroit, Atlanta, Dallas, and Louisville.
A New Jersey native, Barry Woods made his way to Connecticut by way of athletics. Attending Southern Connecticut State University, he was a member of the 1996-97 men's basketball Elite Eight championship team and earned his bachelor's degree. In subsequent years, he attended Walden University to obtain a master's degree in human services. Barry is the winner of the 2013 Passion Award, the 2019 Maytag Dependable Leadership Award, and the 2020 Community Leadership Award from the Stanford Boys and Girls Club. Mr. Woods currently resides in Connecticut with his wife, Patricia, and daughter, Alexis. Please join me and Denise in welcoming Barry and Allan.
All right, thank you. Well, first of all, I just want to say what an honor it is for me to be here. I like that mask you got on, my man. Nice mask there. Go Knicks. Yeah, it's an honor. It's a pleasure to be here. Barry and I met, it seems like, I don't even know. It seems like we've known each other for 20 years. Woods walked into my office and I was assistant general manager with the New York Knicks at the time. And he walked into my office and he, right away, I could see the passion. Like everybody in here who knows Woods knows his passion. So we've gotten to know each other, not just through community work, but personally as friends, as brothers, as family. And the words that come to mind are just authentic, passionate, credible. And so there's no one more ready to share this word, no one more passionate, and I would say credible to deliver this message. So it's an honor for me to be here. I'm proud of you, man. We said it earlier, we're proud of you. This is a great moment. When you have something that's just in you and you have something to share the world, it's going to make an impact. So that being said, let's get right to it. The book is, when I have the shirt on and people like look at the shirt, first of all, shout out to his beautiful wife, Patty. Shout out to Patty for the amazing artwork and the ideas and the cover is so stark just in its messaging and in the visual, right? And it makes you study right away and it draws you in right away. But when you look and you say reasons, it starts off with reasons why youth don't give a damn anymore. For my first question for you, Woods, is you're going to get into reasons throughout this presentation, but before we get to the game, let's start with the pregame, right? The pregame is what made you so convinced and convicted that youth don't give a damn anymore?
Well, first of all, thank you. Thank you for that great introduction. You know what I'm saying? Thank you, everybody, for attending. But to be honest, I was one of these kids that felt like this. My dad left when I was 6. I had a childhood, filled of anger, making bad decisions, hanging with the wrong people, things of that nature. But the thing that was different in my process is that I had a strong foundation at my house with my mom. So what makes me see that kids don't give a damn anymore now is, unfortunately, the foundations at home are shaking now. The foundations at home are different now. You know, I've sat in home visits and I've seen some serious discussions between parents and children. And it's just like, how do we even get to that point? You know, the connection between family and the connection between success for young people is getting lost, but it's our fault as adults that it's getting lost. And we don't pay attention to that. We see it, but we don't really see it because we're afraid to touch it sometimes. So when you say like what makes me see that? I mean, I talk to these kids. You know what I'm saying?
How do you define not giving a damn? What is that? How do you define? I mean, you know, I know we'll get into it, but what does that mean?
Not giving a damn is straight adults need to care more, period. And when I say adults need to care more, we need to listen. We need to listen. We need to provide space and opportunity. We need to also say, think outside the box. And we need to also understand that we don't know everything. We might be older, we might be in control of things, but we don't know everything. And we can learn from young people. We can learn from young people.
One of the things that you say a lot is model your expectations. And that, when you said that the first time, I think I just let it like go over my head and I didn't grab it but it hit me because I said it and I'm like, wow. And it sounds very simple, but I feel like that's an overarching, one of my interpretations of this message is kids, we know they're so impressionable, right? My wife and I have 7. And yeah, it's funny and sometimes it's not funny, but you learn just what this shirt in the book says. Because one of the things that I've challenged with is, as a father, I can see what I would like my child's character and personality and their drive to look like, but I can't make it. I can only try to influence it. Now, how can I influence it if I'm not modeling it, right?
And when you talk about and that's the biggest piece when we talk about the support that we need to give to young people. And that's the biggest challenge that I'm putting out there for adults. I challenge you to be better role models. Seriously. You know, I mean, really think about it. Young people need to see every situation. They need to understand every situation. They need to understand how to address things. They need to understand how to deal with anger, frustration, all that stuff. All that stuff that we as adults sometimes manage appropriately and sometimes we don't. We're going.
So let's get into, you know, one of the slides. Yeah. Because, you know, he's like, can't tell everything. I let people read some of it. That's the sweet science and the balance here, right? But yeah, you know, you had a slide and you listed, right? This is good. And we're talking about whys. We could spend the whole hour on this right here, but I'd like you to think about like which one of these bullet points really sticks out to you.
The one that is the most important is the first one. The challenge for adults to be better role models. That's the most important one right there, because that is the head of everything. That heads everything. If we role model better as adults, it will change the process of what young people see. It will change the language that young people are using. It will change the actions that young people are having with each other or not having with each other because they see us leading and doing things in a certain way. All right? I mean, think about this. When you talk about role models, right? Really think about this. every facet of leadership in this country is corrupted. Think about that. But we sit and tell kids, be honest, be truthful, respect people. But what do we show?
You know, I think that's something to really sit on. How do we challenge an adult who may not be equipped to receive the challenge? You know, sometimes, you know, I have a friend of mine that said something that was pretty powerful, that we can operate out of our capacity. If some adults are operating off of what they've learned and what they've received, right? So
that's a big piece, and we're gonna really dive into that a little bit later, you know, as well. But that's a big piece of when you talk about disengaged parents. Just like you said, what you've learned. Remember what he said about what you learned when we get to disengaged parents, and we talk about that type stuff. But we have to understand the level of influence that we have on young people. We have to understand that we, the adults, are the button pushers, are the turning points in this process. Respect. I mean, this is huge. This is huge right here. We got lack of respect in community. We got lack of respect in the home. We got lack of respect for school. I mean, you got parents that don't even respect education. So how is your child going to respect education if you don't respect education?
So the question is, how do we foster respect? How do we, you know, it's easy to say, hey, respect is earned. It's earned. How do we earn it in a world that you're saying that nobody can trust each other, nobody can trust leadership, nobody can trust institutions, you know, and leadership is broken because as people, we're all broken in a way, right? We're all broken. So how do we earn respect from young people?
Going back to that first point that we talked about, going back to that first point that was on that first slide, we have to role model, even for ourselves. Even for ourselves, we have to role model. And we got to be accountable. You have to be accountable. Accountability is one of the biggest things. Biggest things. The importance for education, and understanding how the students provide, that they need to provide integrated support being kinship, school climate, restorative practice, positive youth development. The integrated support needs to come from those approaches. Put that stuff together. It's not easy. That stuff takes work. Yes, it does take work. But what are we here for in these fields if we're not trying to work and change the platforms for young people? Not just trying to appease and meet your goals. I'm talking about change, doing something. As we move forward, which brings us to chapter 1. And take a look at that subtitle in chapter 1. Today's struggling young people have an attitude that can't wait to say F you and are motivated by money, power, and respect.
We're hearing a lot of agreement with that, you know, and you know, I would love to, as we get into this, maybe after this chapter, maybe because I'm feeling that this is a good time to maybe get some feedback, some questions as we kind of break through. But what do you have for this chapter?
Well, with this chapter, we got to really focus on like when we talk about respect in the family foundation, like we have to understand that the family is the constructed unit, you know? So when we depend on how do we show respect, we need to show respect by building those values. So when you talk to a young person about why they need to do a certain thing or why they don't need to do a certain thing, That's when you build that value of respect. If those conversations are not happening and you just assume that certain things are supposed to happen or certain things are supposed to go on or whatever, just because it's missed. And that's what we do. We assume. We assume.
Yeah, I just want to make a quick point there. It's a very good point, because I think we're in our young people do need to be informed more, right? And I think about they ask why a lot, not because they're trying to be disrespectful, because they just don't know. And sometimes as adults, we take that as, man, they just being disrespectful. And no, we can't assume anything. And what I'm learning, we can't assume anything. If my daughter or my son doesn't say hello to someone, I'm not going to assume that he's or she's being disrespectful at that point. I'm going to say, you know what, maybe they just didn't come into their mind, but I have to remind you and inform you why it's important just to say hello, shake somebody's hand, look them in the. So I think sometimes we get a little overwhelmed, we get a little impatient, we get a little fatigued by having to repeat a lot of that. And we can't lose that energy because sometimes they don't know. I get frustrated sometimes, like, hey, I have to tell you this every single day at the same time 4 or 5 times. Well, I mean, like, what's happening now? I don't want to assume that's being disrespectful, but yes, I have to. At the end of the day, my thing is, I see it as a coach, right? If a player goes out on the floor and they don't know something, it is my responsibility for them to know that information and find out how they can receive that information and apply it so that they are informed and equipped.
Right. Exactly. But I mean, if you look at it, like you said, as a coach, you're teaching and things of that nature. But as adults, we get frustrated with situations and then we lose focus. Like we get frustrated with situations and we lose focus. Things open up and things go to the left and things go to the right. And then whatever's in the middle gets jumped over all the time, gets jumped over. And it's like the loss of unconditional love within the family. The family used to be the only spot that you could bring anything to. Now, you're alienated from your family. Think about that. Really think about that. You're alienated from your family.
What do you mean by that? When you say you're alienated?
You're scared. Like the kids are scared to bring certain issues. No, I'm not going to talk about that when I go home. Can't say that when I go home. Nah. Oh, I got to act like this when I get in the house. What do you mean? Like, what's going on? That makes no sense. So in some type of way, that sounds like a mental prisoner. A mental prisoner that we create in our own home.
Who can I trust? Where can I go?
Exactly. How do we connect? How do you connect? The lack of family connection. How do you connect? How do you connect when you come home with that A and mom and dad is nowhere around for you to tell them about that A? When you eat dinner and everybody gets their food and the routines, like I said, the routines and stuff are lost. You eat dinner, everybody gets their food and they spread out around the house. They go play the video games and all that. That's loss of connection. You can't check in. You don't know what's going on. And then adults, we got the nerve to say, oh, I've been working all day, I'm tired. I've been working all day, I'm tired. And? So you get no quality time? Quality time becomes a hassle? It becomes a hassle for you to sit down and talk to a young person that you had 100% participation in bringing into this world, who didn't ask to be here. It's hard to find quality time for that.
So I'd love to have a moment right here. Speaking of didn't ask to be here, I have to get to a cookout with my children for their school. It's a back to school. But I'd just like to maybe just open it up for just a couple questions before I have to leave. And
we got Kenny Green. We got Kenny Green on the mic in the crowd. Kenny, you want to reflect a little bit?
Yeah. Thanks, Barry. Al, that's a powerful discussion. Hello, everyone. I'm Kenny Green, founder of Stanford Community. Hopefully you all are following that on Instagram. But here today, I'm serving as your Q&A moderator. So we're going to talk about some of the powerful things that we heard here. So let's talk about respect, because that's a big one. We think about, well, why are we here? Barry wrote this book because youth don't care anymore. But why? And we see these things in them. We see some negative values like lack of respect, but why? And that's the first question I want to throw out to you guys. Why do you think you see these things in our youth? And if there are any youth here that want to talk, you can tell us why there's been loss of respect. But maybe want to hear from you. Why do you think you see these things? Get this mic for you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Wilner Joseph, Stanford resident, founder of Hoops for All nonprofit, and also CEO, founder of $1 Million Smile clothing brand that brings awareness to gun violence. First of all, I want to say, my brother, and I'm choked up and emotional. I'm proud of you, man, because as I knew you for over 20 years, and me and you in the same fight. You know what I mean? And I'm really, really proud of everything that you accomplished and more to come. And God has blessed you and put you and provide you in so many different platforms to fight for the youth who don't have too many people like ourselves that advocate for them, right? And again, I'm blessed and happy to know you, and I'm happy to call you my friend. Not even my friend, my brother, because it's a tough battle out there fighting people who don't want to see us succeed. First of all, the respect situation, it starts from home, right? And when you can't get it from home, you look towards the streets. And as a former student and an advocate now as an adult, and someone who advocates for the youth in our inner city, some of the youth here who I work with, when you can't get the proper respect from home and you don't see the respect from home, you go out in the streets and look for it. But then sometimes you say, oh, maybe I can go to school and look for that respect and safety. And then you get the adults who don't give you that respect and the safety net, because as I've always say, and this is how I feel, and I don't want to rub any shoulders whoever works in the school system, but the school system to me, public schools, because I worked in the public schools, and I've also worked in the private schools, and I know the difference. So to me, the public schools are designed and set up as the prison pipeline. It's set up for our young youth to be able to understand how the prison system works. And if you don't understand what I'm saying, then I'm sorry that you don't get it. Because again, I'm a former student, and I was once a student who looked, right? I grew up in a single family home, and my mom busts her behind to make sure that I didn't fall into the streets. But I was just so fortunate. I was ahead of my time where we had I would say the drug dealers in my neighborhood would say to me, we won't allow you to sit out here. You better go across the street to that basketball court and dribble that ball until you figure out a way to get out this neighborhood. But, sometimes when you see adults operate like kids, you can't expect kids to be able to respect them if they don't respect themselves. And what I say to you is that kids watch everything you do and you say. So when you have adults who have the platform, right? Principal, community leader, pastor, whatever you want to call yourself, and they hear you badmouth Barry, how do you expect them to respect you? And you tell them they shouldn't be bullies or they should respect others if you don't show respect to that adult, right? I see that a lot. And that to be said, it's like, we got to hold ourselves accountability, like you said before. And I love when you said that, because sometimes we don't look ourselves in the mirror. We point fingers and we want to say what this person doesn't do, but what are you doing? What are you doing? What are you looking for? Are you willing to change? Or are you just willing to sit back on your title and say, I'm okay with my title and my salary and not operate and give these young youth the opportunity to understand how to get ahead in life? Don't use them for a basketball tournament. Don't use them for whatever the quota is to get that budget, right? Use them to help them get ahead in life and show them the real life skills. But I'm not going to keep going on. I'm just so excited to be here. I wanted to go first because I have to go to the city to an event. You know, my schedule has been crazy, but just wanted to say I love you. Keep up the good work, and I'm happy you never changed. All right, man. Love you, my brother.
Love you too, man.
Thank you, Brother Will. Always powerful words. Anyone else who wants to speak, please put your hands up. But I want to just pick up on two things he said. So kids they're not getting the respect in the household. So that was one reason he cited. They're not getting the respect. And then second, their models, their parents are not giving respect to others. So that's the two things he mentioned there. So I just want you to think about those things.
Right. And those are great points to lead into going into the second chapter. You know, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. As adults, we need to communicate instead of dominate. We need to communicate instead of dominate. Because dominate is definitely what we do. Definitely what we do. Prime example. Adults don't like to listen. Right? We don't listen to nothing these young people say. Nothing. But we expect them to listen to us. We expect them to respond to us. So let's take this for a second, right? We've all either seen this, done this, or been a part of this situation right here. Sitting at home, you're a little frustrated, kids are making noise, somebody wants to say something to you or whatever, and you say, shut up, be quiet. Nobody say nothing right now. And they're quiet. Let's reverse the roles. Let's reverse the roles. What happens if a kid is having a bad day and they come home frustrated and you come up to them and they say, shut up, get out my face, sit down, I don't want to talk to you right now. That's not okay. But what we just said was okay. Just think about that for a minute. Just think about that for a minute. Role modeling, respect, accountability. What are we saying to that young person right there when we do that? Again, think about that for a minute. We got to remember that as we are doing things, we got to get rid of this superhuman thing that we have as adults. Like adults do no wrong. Adults make all the great decisions. Like we do no wrong for nothing. We are not perfect. And we need to acknowledge that. We need to focus on trying to create teachable moments from certain situations to show young people that, okay, when I get upset, when I'm upset with you, I'm upset at your behavior, but I'm not upset with you as an individual. You know, there's a scenario in my book, page 23 and 24, with a young woman, and her name is Lisa. And Lisa happens to be leaving the mall one day, but she's going out the exit door. She's leaving the mall with her daughter. She's leaving out the exit door. She's leaving out the entrance door. Another woman is coming in through the entrance door, and they bump each other. She knocks Lisa's bags down. Lisa loses control. Better watch you da 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 da, all that, you know, right in front of her daughter. Right in front of her daughter. Keeps walking to the car. They get in the car. Lisa still don't say nothing. What's going through her daughter's head right now, though? Oh, mom just got wild up in the mall. Da 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 da. I can't wait to tell my friends. People know not to mess with my mom. Da 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 da. Boom. That's going on in her mind. But she's also thinking, well, I guess that's how you handle stuff too. Because mind you, mom has said nothing. The next thing mom does is turn on the radio. The song on the radio is like a Neo song or something they both like. So they ooh, to the music. Mom drives off and they stop at McDonald's. That's mom's way of saying, yeah, it's okay, baby. So now what happens? When her daughter goes to school, her daughter's running down the hallway to get to class, runs into class, bumps into the teacher, almost knocks the teacher over, her and another student. The student in front of her says, excuse me. Sorry, I didn't mean to hit you. You know, I was running. Her daughter, you saw me coming. What you mean? Excuse me, get out of my way. Da, 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 da. Get sent to the office. Now she has a meeting. And this whole scene is put back in front of her. Guess what her first statement is? Oh, somebody said it. No, somebody else said it. I wonder where she got that behavior from. I wonder where she got that behavior from. She got it from watching you. She got it from watching us. They get it from watching us. We have a tendency to forget. We have a tendency to forget our roles and how we impact the certain things that goes on in them. We have a tendency to abuse our authority. Oh, it's okay because I'm an adult. What did I say? What did I say? Who's the adult in the room? This is the stuff that we're saying.
So Barry, just thinking about that situation when a parent makes a mistake, they do something wrong. Like, how would you suggest they go back to their child and say, hey, I did this, that wasn't the right thing to do? Like, how would you suggest a parent approach that?
To be honest with you, Kenny, just like you said it just now. You know what I'm saying? As adults, we got to stand up. And it's nerve-wracking at times where you have to talk to a young person and let them know that you made a mistake and be sincere about it. And let them know that, you know, what you did to them or around them or in front of them was definitely wrong. And if they did the same thing, you would be very upset with them. And you didn't mean to show them what you showed them or act how you acted or contradict yourself the way that you did. But for some reason, we just can't get there consistently. And I don't understand that, because we have a mantra in this country that says children are our future. Just think about that for a minute. Children are our future. But we have an untapped defense fund. And every time something gets cut, it's education. But children are our future. I'm just saying. So a big problem is, like we said before, like I was saying earlier, like we don't listen. This is how we listen. This is how we listen as adults. This is how we listen as adults. These are 3 ways that we listen as adults. Projected listening, which is sporadic. And that's one of the primary ways, where we're just kind of sitting there and the young person is talking and we're thinking about wherever else we're doing. Pretended listening is another one. That's great when you see people doing this. And they're bending down, looking at the kid. And I'm trying to get out of here. Yeah, it's about 5 minutes. This bell about to ring. Yeah, okay. Whatever he's saying, I'm gonna just keep talking to him. 5 minutes, that bell ring, and I'm going my way. Ignoring listening. We just overlook the whole process of even understanding what a person is saying. Again, but these are things that we hold young people accountable for. You need to listen. You need to pay attention. You need to listen. You need to pay attention. Did you hear what I just said? Did you hear what I just said? What if they were to ask us that? What if they were to ask us that, if we heard what they just said? What if they were to ask us if we were paying attention to them? What would your answer be? Or would we cover it and say, stop being disrespectful? Don't talk to me like that. I'm the adult, remember. Again, things to think about. Now, chapter 3, we get into disengaged parenting. Now, before we get into disengaged parenting, I want to apologize for, I would say, you know, the things that are about to be mentioned in here. I'm not trying to be, not trying to coddle us as adults, you know, because as parents, we've really done a bad job and we need to really pick it up. And sometimes we forget that we're parents. As adults, we forget that we play a role of a parent as well. You know, we get confused with whatever else we do, and we forget that we're also a parent. When you talk about parents, there's 3 components. And this is why it's not say you shouldn't have kids too early in life, okay? You shouldn't have kids too early in life because of these 3 components right here: knowledge, understanding, and development. You need knowledge in life. You need to experience things. You've experienced nothing at 20. You've experienced a little bit at 25. By 30, okay, you're starting to get it a little bit. That's the truth. That's the truth. So how come that is not considered when we talk about parenting? Understanding needs to, you have to understand how to deal with processes as an individual, as an adult. You got to know how to talk down things. You got to know how to give past things. You have to know all that. So what do you know at 19, 20, 25? You're still trying to figure out your life sometimes. You got to be able to develop. You got to develop yourself. You got to have worldly experiences so you can give back to other people. If you can't give back, you can't reflect. What are you doing? What are you doing? How are you guiding? Parenting is a privilege, not a burden. But how many times do we hear, oh, these damn kids, getting on my nerves. Oh man, just can't take it, just can't take it. It's too much. That sounds like a burden. You say that in front of your kids. You say that in front of your kids. So, like we saying, the impact of the situations like that is it rolls over to young people being insufficient young people in society. We have to really understand that young people don't ask to be here, like I was saying earlier before. They don't ask to be here. It's our choice. It's our choice to bring a young person into this world. So if it's our choice to bring a young person into this world, you have to be prepared. And if you're not prepared, you have to get prepared. That's the accountability, period. There's no in between. There's no in between, period. And the thing is, we think that there's in betweens. We feel that there's in betweens. It's not, because they're the ones being held accountable for the things that we miss out on. But their accountability is affecting their lives, affecting their futures. Who's going to be the next mayor from this generation? Who's going to be the next police chief from this generation? When they don't even look at those professions as something that they would even desire to be because of certain things that they don't trust. Education, the impact on education. We have to really understand that we got to be able to go the extra mile when it comes to education. You got to think outside the box. You got to do things that are different. And again, we got to stay inclusive with the factors that affect behavior: kinship, school climate, school connectedness, restorative practice, positive youth development. All those things play into behaviors. Kinship is the family values. Your school climate is your environment that your kids go to every day. The school connectedness, who do they trust? Who's the trusted adult in that school, in that building? The restorative practices, restoring and reflecting, building yourself. And positive youth development, how we keep them engaged through the whole process all the time. How do we keep them engaged? We have to keep them engaged. Again, some hard facts for adults. Some parents are undereducated. They lack skills. They're not developed. What's being done about that? They're not trying to get, some of them are not trying to get help. But how does that affect the young person? So if they need help with certain work at home, can they get that if they don't have this sufficient support at home? No. What does that look like? What does the homework scene look like in a situation like that? You have to think about that. So then we move on to the factors of how young people process verbal bashing and tough love, because these are the things that we as adults feel that, you know, this is how you got to push it through. Sometimes you gotta you know, be hard with a kid, verbally bash them. No, you don't. You don't have to take away the power from a young person. You don't have to destroy the identity of a young person. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not about winning the argument. It's not about winning the argument with a young person at all. And then when you talk about tough love, we got to remember that love is in that word, tough love. Tough love is negative feedback. They take it as negative feedback because you're telling them something that they really don't want to hear. But it's negative feedback backed by empathetic reinforcement. That's tough love. Not just putting somebody in a situation and saying, figure it out. Not just ranting and raving on a person with no recourse. Or if you're going to rant and rave, then let it later on, you come back and explain why you rant and raved. How many of us do that?
I'm going to jump in for some questions here. Before I, toss out a question, if you have a question, just raise your hand first. So I just want to point out, that last slide there. I don't know if you can go back to that, Barry, with the educators. I think it's three slides back, but right there, the impact, that's the slide. And a lot of us here have contact with young people. We're trying to get through to young people. But I think one of the things for this book that comes through is that a lot of times what you see in young people is because of what they experience from their parents and households. And so now you have young people who didn't learn, certain values. The parents might not have the educational levels, and they learn these things indirectly or directly. And now you meet the child. And so what do we do? Because we know that has an impact. So what do we do as guidance, as educators, as advocates? What do we do? This is where Barry Mission, going the extra mile, is what we have to do, because now we know why, what we see. And sometimes that might be a little off-putting, and we put it on the child to act better or change, but this is who they are from what they've seen. So how do we go the extra mile? So that's the question I want to ask for people that have contact with young people. How do you go the extra mile? Like, what would that look like in your roles or your contact with young people Or maybe you have an experience where you've gone the extra mile. Maybe you can give us an example of that. Just what does that look like for a child going the extra mile? Anybody want to take a stab at that? Or Barry, you can tell me a story about going the extra mile. You do that every day.
Not to, but I would like to see if anybody, I want to test resolve right now. I want to test resolve right now.
Yeah, I'll give it to you. Put your hand up. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Hi, I'm Candace Burke, and I'm going to get a little emotional here. This man probably saved my son with my help as supporting him. It is so important to stand behind your kid. I don't care what they want to do and what you think they ought to do. But my son had no vision in going to college, but he had a passion for music. And I'm happy to say he'll be 30 this year. He's an audio engineer, and he's out on the West Coast and the East Coast. He was part of Future 5. This man stood behind my son and pushed and pushed and pushed and held him and just supported the hell out of him. And he was the first person that introduced my son's son to him. And he's a dynamic little 8-year-old. But I work for Roscoe. I've worked for them for 21 years. I've worked with kids for a long time. And before that was advertising. They're both crazy businesses. However, working with children, I don't care whether they're little guys, 5 years old is about my speed and up. They all need love and care and attention and an ear. And today's parenting really sucks, to put it bluntly. It is, I'm on the cell phone. Come on, let's go. Let's go. You got to come. They're not even paying attention. It is the most god-awful thing I've ever seen. And, many times I'll try to stop a parent. We can't come into the building right now, but when they could, you try to have a little conversation with them. I will always go eye to eye with the child. You can tell, or at least after 21 years, I can tell kids come in and there's a problem. I got bullied in school. My teacher doesn't like me. Or the kid acts out and they hit somebody. And I thought, this isn't you. What's going on? Well, my teacher doesn't like me. I thought, so it's okay to hit somebody else? Anyway, he and I both had a math problem and we solved it because that was his problem. I said, you got to go get help. You got to tell your teacher, I need help. And if she doesn't help you, let's go to the principal, because I will be there for you if you need somebody to stand in your corner. He did well in math. I got a B in math that year. But the thing is that there's so many children that, as you said, nobody listens to them. I mean, I've worked in the schools for 21 years or more. And you've got good teachers and you've got teachers that mean well, but they don't listen and they don't pay attention. Oh, I got too many kids. Well, I used to have 60 kids a day in the afternoon. That's not too many kids. Now I've got 34. It's like still okay. But the thing is that when you show an interest in a child and they trusted adult in the building, you've got to build a bond. And I will usually approach, because I don't, you can't tell a parent something and you can't ask them questions. I sort of go in a roundabout way. And I said, well, gee, I know that Robert had a little difficulty reading today. Are there any strategies that you use at home? So I'm inviting the parent into the problem. Or I said, would you mind if I asked the teacher for some pointers? So I'm sort of getting a little, community going in this kid's corner. And I've done things like that for years, but you have to pay attention to the kid. You have to listen to them. I didn't always want to listen to my kid. I'll tell you a funny story and then I'll get off. My son was in preschool. He was 3 years old and we'd come home and here I am being a single parent, perfect parent. I got to get you undressed. I got to put my coat down. I got to get dinner ready. And he's like, mommy, 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 because he wanted to tell me about his day. I learned you got to take 5-10 minutes. Didn't matter if the coat came off. Didn't matter if the dinner got put on the table, to spend one-on-one. How was your day? What'd you do? Who'd you meet? and I say to the kids I deal with every single day, as soon as I start doing that, after 5-10 minutes, I had the night. I mean, I could make a 2-hour meal and he'd still be okay. And he'd play by himself and, like he's playing and I'm right there. But it's attention. So thank you.
Thank you, Candace. No, that was good. I'm gonna make sure I give them 5 minutes because that happens to me when I pick them up from school. They just want to talk. And I'm like, can you just get in the car? It is what happens there. So definitely, but you said a good point. Like we need to stand for our youth and we need to listen to our youth. So that goes back to what you're saying, Barry. Like, just hearing the voice of the child, because if they want to tell you what's wrong, I have a teenager trying to pull out words from a 16-year-old is like pulling teeth. And that might be just saying it lightly. So if they're willing to talk, please listen. And because normally you got to pull teeth for them to talk. So I think we had one more point you wanted to.
Thank you. Hello. Oh, hi. My name is Mavina, and I'm really happy to be here, Mr. Woods, and so proud of you. I just want to briefly say how I seen you go the extra mile, and I was a part of that. So you know what I'm talking about, HIV prevention. Mr. Woods brought his students when I was when I worked for the health department in the HIV prevention program. He thought it was important enough to have his students come and do groups with me, not just in regards to HIV, because HIV is important, it was important, it continues to be important, but just the idea of peer pressure, because all of that falls in play with HIV having peer pressure put on you to have unprotected sex, to smoke marijuana, to do anything. So my thing is that I thought it was very, very important and very good of Mr. Woods to feel like the children that he worked with, the youth that he worked with needed that information. So I really appreciate that. And you're a person who goes way out for youth. Also, just one more point.
Okay, I'm not messing with you. You're doing great.
I felt like I've gone, beyond for kids a million times, but I just think that at this particular time, I worked for the Board of Education, City of Stanford Board of Education as a substitute teacher. I'm trying to struggle with the mask on. And I'm at Anchor Program. I don't know if anybody knows about the Anchor Program, but Anchor Program, you have students in there who have a difficult time in mainstream. So they're sent there for whatever reasons. They have different issues that they bring from home to school and everything else that goes along with that. But when I first got there, this is my 3rd year, but when I first got there, and they're a tough crowd. When I first got there, they were so used to teachers coming in, substitutes coming in, and they would just be really nasty to them and they wouldn't come back. So they tried me with that. They were like, okay, you're not staying. We know you're not going to stay because we're going to get rid of you like we got rid of all the other substitute teachers. And that's what they told me. But I had a trick for them. I came back the next day and the next day, and I'm here 3 years later. It's a tough crowd, believe me. I just want to quit all the time. But these kids, they need us. They need us to show them the right direction. They need a lot of help and they go through a whole lot at home. And a lot of times, I'm not blaming I think this is enough blame to go around for everybody. None of us are perfect. You have some good parents, then you have parents that are struggling for whatever reason. But I grew up in a place in old school, which I think a lot of times, a lot of information that you shared today sort of made me reflect on if I had this information when I raised my daughter, because she's 36 years old. And it was what I said goes, because that's the way I was brought up. Certain things that, I couldn't speak back to my parents. When I said something bad about just even thought to say something, I was like in another room. Because my father or my mother would just be, and we got beatings and all that kind of stuff. So I sort of used that to try to raise my daughter, and it didn't work. It just didn't work. But anyway, with that said, thank you.
Right. Thank you, Mavina. Thank you for sharing. But she brings up great points. You know, and like Kenny was saying, like, what does going the extra mile look like? What is that? You know, that could be picking up the phone at 12 o'clock. That could be sitting an extra hour with a kid, you know, and doing some work. That could be just having a conversation with them. You know, when you're about to leave and you're about to get off the clock and you spend an extra 30 minutes with that kid, that could change their life. That could change their life. Going the extra mile, you know what going the extra mile truly is? Forgetting about yourself. You want to go the extra mile, you think about the young person. That'll help you go the extra mile. You make the young person your primary support. You make the young person the reason why you're doing what you're doing. You be honest and true about that. And then you can go the extra mile. All right. Chapter 4. F school. It's a mentality that us as adults help kids develop in school. Explain to me how we have high school seniors who are unable to be efficient in reading and writing. Explain that to me. Again, going back to the accountability. We have to be accountable. The school system have to be accountable. It's not just about maintaining the children for 10 months because it's 10 months a year. And then you take your 2 months off and then you restart. That's what happens. That's what's going on right now. Look at that. Look at that. Right now, we manage the kids for 10 months. Then we break for the summer. Then we start all over again. Nothing from last year transcends to this year. It starts all over again, fresh. We got to do better. The system, sometimes we just do just enough so things can be said that we're not doing enough. And we know this. We know this. We know this. What's the outcome? Young people being inefficient in reading and writing. Me sitting down with a 22-year-old man who can't spell, who can't read, who can't write. And we got to start all over so he can fill out an application and try to get a job. Something above a dishwasher. Something above a parking attendant. This young man was told when he was in high school because he was athletic. I mean, when he was in high school because he was athletic, that he was going to do something with that potential. He was told that by teachers, given passes by teachers because they didn't want to deal with him. See the underlining thing right here. All right, yeah, I'm gonna take care of that for you. I'm gonna take care of that for you. Go ahead, get to the game. How many times have we heard that? How many times have we heard that? How many times have we done that? What interferes with accountability? Egos, bonuses, jealousy, work relationships. Everybody wants to look good at the expense of a young person. Everybody wants to look good at the expense of a young person. I said it, that's right. Everybody wants to look good. Why? Because young people bring money. Young people bring money. So that's what we doing now? That's what we doing now? Interesting. Very interesting. And school education, the educational structure and foundation of what we have in society is preparing young people for the future to keep managing our society. Interesting. Very interesting. We push students along in school. We push students along because we don't want to deal with parents, because we don't want to deal with confrontation, because teachers are frustrated and don't want to do differentiated instruction. We push a kid through. How is a kid in 9th grade when they had Fs since 6th grade? I'm gonna say it again. How is a kid in 9th grade when they had Fs 6th, 7th, and 8th grade? And now in 9th grade is their problem. In 9th grade is their problem. Every adult in their circle is saying, well, you didn't do, you didn't learn, you didn't do. I wasn't taught. I wasn't given the opportunity to succeed. Let me say that again. I wasn't given the opportunity to succeed, period. Because that's what happens when we do that. We take away the opportunity to succeed. When we don't hold ourselves accountable as adults, especially in the education realm, especially in the education realm. Lack of family engagement. How many times, man, I do not want to deal with this mother today. Oh my God. She coming in for real? She coming right now? We got this parent meeting. We got to sit with his parents? Oh my God. Isn't there another way we can just, rectify this? How many times have we heard things like that? How many times have we been a part of things like that? Are educators maximizing their engagement to form trusted relationships with young people through kinship, school climate, positive youth development, and restorative practice? Are they doing that? We might talk about it a lot, but the question is, are they doing that? To the level that it needs to be done, not surface. I'm not talking about surface as just going through and saying the things that you've learned in the training, okay? This is surface, saying the things that you learned in the training, having the conversations at work about the training, which shows that you've been at the training, but not applying anything, just talking about it. That's surface. That goes on a lot. We got to step that up. It's not acceptable. It's not acceptable. We're putting kids out here in this world who are undereducated, unprepared, not ready. Undereducated, unprepared, not ready. That's a license for destruction. A license for destruction. And we're setting that up. Interesting. Interesting.
And Barry, just want to ask you, that's a great point. When kids are unprepared and not ready, where do they go?
Exactly. Exactly. There we go.
I'm sure everybody in the room knows where they go.
Jail, nowhere, streets, papers, right? And then it's always, oh man, well, if this would have happened or if that would have happened, that's too late. That's too late. How is that fair to the kids who came before? How is that fair to the young man who is sitting right now, probably homeless, has no way to find work, might have to sell drugs for a living? How is that fair to him? When at one time he was told that he was going to be a success or she was going to be a success. As we move into the last chapter, it's about our attitude. It's my world. You're just a squirrel trying to get a nut. Quote from Orange Juice Jones. Gotta give it respect. But that's our attitude. When we deal with young people, we push away. So they got to look for family and things everywhere else. That's where the gangs in the streets come involved. The reality that young people deal with is their reality, is their world. We have to respect it like that, though. We can't take something that a young person says and says, oh, no, that's whatever. It's their world. We can't change it. We can change it through the process, but not initially. We have to respect their reality. We can't devalue the way they feel. We can't devalue the way they feel. And that's what we do when we tell, well, now, I feel I was disrespected, but well, I don't think they really meant to say that. What do you mean? That's how the young person took it. So you have to deal with it from that level right there. I don't feel that I was given, well, you know, sometimes people just, you know, you just got to let things go by and your time will come. What? What does peer pressure look like nowadays? Online threats, physical threats, peer group acceptance is huge right now. Huge right now. Huge. One of the biggest, adult pressures. Adult pressures on peer pressure. So, how come you're not getting an A? From mom or dad. If it's a boy, oh, okay, Junior, you think you fly. Okay, what's up with these girls? I don't see you with no girls, though. You always hanging with boys. I don't see you with no girls. Same thing with the girl. Why you hanging out? Why you be around them girls that be hanging around them boys like that? What you gonna do with yourself? That's a good one. What you gonna do with yourself? We got to really understand what we are doing when we are dealing with our young people. We got to really understand what we're putting on them when we're dealing with our young people, because we have to give them an opportunity and a chance to be successful in life. You can't do that without providing certain things that you might have to take away from yourself. We have to have safe environments. What is a safe environment? What does that look like? We need safe environments in school. We need safe environments at home. We need safe environments in the community. We need safe environments online. We need safe environments amongst peers and adults. But how are we doing that when we hanging out and we smoking and drinking at the house and we telling them, the kids to go to the room? Oh, it's poker night. It's bingo night. It's wine day, whatever it is. Think about it. Think about it. Do as I say, not as I do. Really? That's how we move it? Do as I say, not as I do. That's the way we role model? I don't think so. Feeling safe is huge when it comes to behaviors. When young people feel unsafe, that's when we see a lot of behaviors. Safety, verbally, physical, self-harm, isolation, all those things are part of safety. All those things, they have to be able to communicate. That's why your voice is important. They have to know that their voice is going to be heard. They have to know that when I say something, it's going to at least be considered. It's going to at least be considered. Physically, they run into things, say, with peers, even with adults, that we have to be protective on. We got to watch out for self-harm, especially now in this In this, world of a pandemic, it's been a lot of increase with, teen suicides and things like that. So you got to pay attention to that. And you've got to be careful about the isolation. Got to be careful about the isolation with things. Can't always just allow them to just be alone and by themselves. We have to engage. We have to engage. So when we look at all these things, and I underline them by saying non-caring adults, effects of non-caring adults. Just look at that for a minute. What are adults' intentions behind working with kids? Personal gain, grants, money, political appeal, public appeal? Just really think about that. Like, look at that and think about that. Think about some of the meetings that you might have been in. Think about some of the conversations you might have had. Is that true? Interesting. Educators working in education just to get a check. Now, they say it in class all the time. I get paid anyway. I get paid whether y'all come or not. I don't care what y'all do. Y'all can hand in whatever y'all get hand in. On Thursday, I still get my check. Educators gossiping about young people? Again, I'm gonna go back to something. Accountability. Where's the accountability? Where's the accountability? Who's checking who? Who's checking who right here? You sitting in that meeting and nobody's gonna say, whoa, 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 whoa. Like, let's change the tone of this conversation. This is what we talking about here? Nobody gonna say that? Interesting. Very interesting. So all these factors line up into the importance of youth voice. Again, like I was saying before, and I repeat it again, we need to listen. They need to know that they can say something and it's going to be heard and it's going to be effective. So I thank you. I thank everybody for their time tonight. And I really hope that some things that were said here stick. And I really hope that, some things make you squirm a little bit, make you be uncomfortable. I want you to be uncomfortable. When you go home and you look at a young person later on today, whether you have children or not, you work with kids, whatever. The next time you come into contact with a young person, I want you to think about how you've been role modeling. Think about what have you shown? Just on your walk up to the young person, what have you shown? How are you walking up to them? How are you? What are you showing? What are you showing? How are you speaking to them? What's your routine? What's your routine? Is it genuine? These are questions you got to ask yourself. These are questions you got to ask yourself because life is nothing to play with. And that's what we're doing. As adults, we're playing with young lives. When we're not serious about really showing them how to address things and be truthful to things and be right and handle things the right way, deal with frustration the right way, not be, say, a backstabbing type individual. We miss all that. We miss all that. So I invite everybody to do a self-check. On my website and in my book, there's a parent dedication to education quiz. I would like you to take that quiz. See how you feel. See if you can answer all 15 questions. I've had people tell me they can't answer all 15 questions because they got to stop and really think, what are they doing at home? So in hindsight, before we wrap up for the evening, again, I want everybody to take away the fact that we have to improve ourselves as adults, as role models. Young people are losing the battle, the overall battle. But then in the hindsight, society is losing as well, because our young people replace us. If we do not prepare them the right way, we can't allow things like spite to interfere and intervene, especially with adults who have authority. 15 minutes of spite can cost a young person 10 years of their life. You could be so upset with a kid for 50, he's not going to disrespect me. I'm going to show him, whatever. Now, you could put something in their file, you could do something, or you could cause an action to happen that could hinder that young person for the rest of their life because you're in a 15-second spiteful moment as an adult. And you just can't keep yourself together. How many times have it been there? We have to do better. We must do better. If we're going to hold the young people accountable, then we got to hold ourselves accountable.
That's a key word there. And we're almost at time here, so we got time for maybe one or two questions. So if you have one question for Barry that you want him to tackle, please put your hand up and I'll bring the mic over to you. But Barry, this was great. If we can give him a round of applause. So if you haven't understood the book by now, Reasons Why Youth Don't Give a Damn Anymore, you can see it's a lot about us as parents, as advocates, as educators. A lot of it is to us. So we want you to think about that when you go home. It's just, what can we do better? How can we be better? And that's what Barry is bringing forth in his book, ways we can be better. So I encourage you all to get the book, barrywoods.org. I'm plugging.
Yeah, we have some copies.
We got copies over there. Okay, we got copies.
But,
I got my nice T-shirt on right now.
but like Kenny is saying though, seriously, think about this stuff. When you go home, if you have kids, when you go home, look at your kids. Ask yourself, have I been 100%? Have I been the best role model that I could be for you? If you work with young people, the next young person you see, ask yourself, have I been the best role model for you? That's a constant thing that I reflect on my young people with. How can I tell y'all to do this if I do this, whatever. And we talk about that. Take the step. Become a better role model. And really support our young people. Thank you very much.
All right, I'll turn it over to our partners here at the Ferguson Library. Thank you.
I just want to thank you, Barry, for that wonderful and very inspiring presentation that you made today. And thanks everyone for coming. And as we reopen the Ferguson Library bit by bit, we hope you'll come back for more programs. We have a lot of great things planned for the month ahead. So thanks very much for coming.
So